Okay, hey everybody. I'm Matt, and this is Sean here from
Hello.
Blue Bantha Milk Co. All right, so let's get into it. So today we are discussing the expectations and execution of the three main plot vehicles, if you will, for the Rise of Skywalker. Now, these three things we're going to be discussing are the central conflict. In this case, it's the Resistance versus the First Order, the hero and villain story, Rey and Kylo Ren, obviously, and backstory, which is how the film uses its legacy characters and history inside of Star Wars. And then we will be, at the end, talking about the stigma of endings.
Yep. So, I mean, with the stigma of endings, it usually means it's quite hard to see the forest for the trees. So, no matter what the ending is, it's sort of, we're always guaranteed to be arguing about it for the foreseeable future. But yeah, so before we start, if you're new to us, we are Blue Bantha Milk Co. You can check out our channel on YouTube, which would be really cool. Give us a sub, give us a like, check us out. We make good content. And
Reasonable content,
yeah, it's passable. It's passable content. It'll get you through. But yeah, let's get started.
Yeah. So the first topic is the central conflict of the film, which is the Resistance versus the First Order. And as we're coming into the film, The Last Jedi was the Star Wars film that left giant question marks punctuating the direction of the story. Some of those big questions were, has Kylo Ren gone full evil? You never go full evil. Is Rey actually a nobody? And, will we see a Force ghost Luke? And where will the story go? The Rise of Skywalker revealed in its very first teaser that maybe a bigger big bad would answer at least one of those questions. But it left us asking, is Palpatine even real? Or is this just one big misdirect? And turns out it wasn't, you sneak, JJ.
So, yeah, some time has passed since the events of The Last Jedi. The First Order has a stranglehold on the galaxy. So a transmission has been heard around the galaxy and on Fortnite that has announced the supposed return of Emperor Palpatine. A First Order spy has leaked a sinister plot, and the Resistance is smaller than it's ever been. So the stakes have never been so high, but like Return of the Jedi, this journey starts with all of our heroes together on a single mission that drives the A plot forward. So let's talk about that for a second. So the goal is to find and stop Palpatine, which takes them on a quest to find a Sith Wayfinder. The Sith Wayfinder takes them on a search for a Sith assassin. I'm probably Oshi or Ochi.
Ochi.
Oh god, I took two swings and both missed. Ochi Bastoon, which leads to Ochi's dagger, which has inscriptions 3PO can't translate because it's in Sith, which leads them to the droid smith Babo Frick, which leads them to the ruins of the second Death Star, where they find the Sith Wayfinder. And meanwhile, the A and B plots in this case, the relationship and conflict between Rey and Kylo Ren and Rey's past are running in parallel, and it's not until the Death Star 2, about an hour or so into the film, that the two plots collide and diverge. I'm sorry.
What were we expecting? Sean, what were you expecting to happen with the main conflict here when we were going into the film?
So I was one of those people who, at the end of Last Jedi, when Rey closes the door, I took that to be a full stop. I was like, oh, okay, that plot line's done. He had his chance. That's it. But then once we saw that Palpatine was coming back in the teaser, I was like, okay, so they've introduced a third character in order to create someone for these. The goodie and the baddie are going to come together to fight this bigger baddie. That's what I took that to. That was my sort of expectation on that. What about you?
Yeah, kind of similar. I mean, I didn't take the door closing as a hard stop. But obviously, I mean, you're not the only person that thought that. I mean, was it Colin Trevorrow when he was writing Episode 9?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you read the Episode 9 script, it's very much that he has taken that at face value and been like, oh, okay, so that's done. That's it. Kylo Ren's the big bad guy. We can carry on from there. I mean, outside of that, I expected. I think you had kind of like people who, there's like 4 different kind of expectations. There's people who just watch Star Wars films, like, you know, my mum and my brother and my nephew went to see it and absolutely adored it because all they wanted was more Star Wars. And then there's people like me and you who are too deep into it now.
Kind of in
like,
it,
yeah, we're like, you know, we've gone undercover and then we've lost our identity. We're in too deep. Who had spent like a full year sort of talking about what we were expecting and what we hoped to see, and had really built up our expectations to a certain degree. And then you had obviously people on the complete opposite side who wanted, you know, oh, this film's going to reboot the stuff I didn't like from what came previously. And they were never going to be pleased. They hated it before it even came out. And then obviously the sort of Reylo contingent, who I was actually thinking about this when I was rewatching the film. When any images came out, there was that big thing on Twitter of any images, even if Kylo Ren wasn't in them, it was people were trying to Reylo them into this thing. Yeah. And I remember one of them being, there's a shot of like Poe and Finn and Chewie and 3PO, and they're in the cave and Poe's got his torch. Yeah. And I remember seeing a whole thing of like, oh, I know exactly what they're looking at. Rey's going to come out and then she's going to go, guys, don't freak out. And then Kylo Ren's going to walk out. And he's going to be all nervous and all that. And obviously the actual film, they're just looking at a big snake. You know, it has completely nothing to do with him at all. So they were the different, like there was so many different expectations of what people wanted. But I think all of us were expecting something like a definitive, after that first trailer, it said this is like the end of the Skywalker saga. You expected something definitive, an endy, you know, sort of like an ending, a season finale, you know, something that was just going to be a big victory lap of like fan service,
tie it up,
wrap it up. Yeah.
That's I think that's a good chance to mention something that I wasn't expecting. And I wasn't expecting it to be so heavy on world building. You know, for an end chapter. I mean, do they even visit a planet that we've seen before? I mean, other than seeing Wicket at the end, is there any? It's
I would say just Tatooine at the end.
Just Tatooine.
But they don't even go back to Endor. They go to like near Endor, like Endor's next door neighbor.
Yeah,
the moon, don't they? It's very strange, and I think the thing I remember talking about this when I was still on Twitter. It's very strange when you have the thing where Palpatine appears and he says, go and destroy a planet they know. I was like, ooh. And then they blow up Kijimi.
Yeah, which they've been to once. I mean, Poe obviously knows it, but...
Yeah, Poe knows it. Like, and I didn't realize Palpatine had like such a thing for Poe. He's like,
he's really got out for him.
Poe hard in a place he's been to once in the past 20 years. Like, because I was like, oh my God, they're going to blow up Naboo. They're going to, because if you go to like Shattered Empire and stuff like that, when they do Operation Cinder, Naboo is his target. He wants to prove a point. So that was really strange. That felt really odd that they would blow up a planet that we didn't know and had no real stakes in. So that was very strange. But I think that is... That for me, and I think for you as well, was a bit of a weird thing with The Rise of Skywalker, how much new stuff there was. Yeah,
characters as well. Like, I mean, there was a lot of... We already have a lot of characters, but they introduced a lot more. I mean, there's General Pride, there's Dio, there's Beaumont, there's Jana, Babu Frick, Zori Bliss.
Claude.
And then, and Palpatine comes back. Kind of somewhat out of nowhere. It's an interesting choice to make because, if we're just talking on expectations, I wasn't expecting that much new character introduction in something that's going to be 2.5 hours.
Look at Revenge of the Sith. They add Grievous.
Yep.
And if you look at Return of the Jedi, Jabba's technically a new character, but he's been mentioned throughout.
Yeah.
If we ignore the special editions.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah. They Return of the Jedi introduces like Akbar and Wicket, you know. Yeah. And crucially, Grievous and Akbar and Wicket don't do anything that other characters couldn't technically do, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
So I think with Rise of Skywalker, you could take Beaumont, Claude, Jana, and Babu Frick, get rid of them, and give all that stuff to Rose.
Yeah,
and
absolutely could.
And I like Jana, but what they do it would take 2 lines of dialogue to just remove them and put Rose in there.
Yeah. You could almost say similar sort of thing about maybe Hux and Pride.
Yeah,
as well. Yeah,
it would be very easy to say, Hux reveals himself to have been an agent of Palpatine from the very start, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's a cool misdirect because he's been this sort of. Well, it kind of goes back to Last Jedi when Snoke is saying, "Oh, you wonder why I keep him around?" Like, well, yeah, because he's. If it turned out he was like Palpatine's right-hand man, yeah, it would all sort of tie together.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess, with any of this stuff. I mean, obviously, this is all us just saying, well, it could have been this, it would have been that. They've introduced all these characters and all that sort of stuff, and I think there's always good reasons for lots of things. But what we're talking about here is just the sheer volume, the size of what they put into a 2.5-hour film. It's quite a bit. I mean, I think a lot of people came out of it sort of like going, whoa, there's a lot going on in this. And I don't think it was until kind of the second film watch, watching it again and kind of going, oh, okay, cool. The initial shock's down. We can see, you can sort of see the forest for the trees a little bit more, and what's going on. You can follow it a bit easier. But I remember that first viewing was like we were together. We kind of walked out. And we're like,
I remember our thing was saying it was dense. Like that was, I kept saying that. I was like, it's so dense. There's so much I can't get a grip on. Like, like you say, there's too many. Because I obviously rewatched it this week just to sort of get it in my brain. And there's so many scenes that are. It takes a real long time for the film to settle. Like, yes. It's not until they sort of get to Persona where the scenes last more than a few seconds almost. It's a lot of like, okay, now we're here, now we're here, now we're here, now we're here. And you're like, okay, just slow it down. Yeah. You don't know what's going on. There's too much jumping around. When, if you look at like Return of the Jedi, which is not my favorite Star Wars, but they spend 45 minutes in Jabba's palace. I just sort of like, okay, you're in. We've got to end Empire. And we're going to give you this. And then it pretty much that 45-minute ends, and then the final battle begins. Like there's almost no middle act. It almost just goes Jabba, Death Star assault, because they're like, right, this is finishing. We need to just wrap up Empire, wrap up Jedi. Yep. Time for new characters.
Get Han back.
Plot lines.
Yeah, one of the things that has continuously kind of gone through my mind about this is because I like to simplify things. I mean, you and I, this, I guess, from just us working together, is like, we'll start with a paragraph that is this long, and we will work our script down until it's this long to say the exact same thing. And we try to do that all the time. And so something that has really always been in the back of my mind in this film, if we refer back to that slide, the thing that really strikes me about this is just the MacGuffins. So like it's MacGuffin central. And I think that's something that really kind of threw me a bit. And so I've always been trying to think, well, how could you get to the exact same end point by just dropping a MacGuffin and not introducing anyone or anything new that doesn't already exist? So like basically the goal is here, could you simplify the story by just dropping something out? I actually think you can, and I think it's the blade. So
the blade. You explained.
Yeah. So I think and I mean, we've talked about this. So like, I think if we kind of reverse engineer it, obviously the blade leads to the Death Star wreckage, which contains the second Sith Wayfinder, which was the MacGuffin in the first place that we're trying to get to. And what is it? The blade's got the coordinates of the Sith, like written in Sith. So they find the blade with Ochi. He's dead near his ship. They take the blade away. If you take the blade away, you still have the scene in the quicksand. You still have the snake, so let's not get rid of that. So you still see Force healing, so they still get to expand that. And they still exit that scene and enter the ship. the ship works. The ship's got a computer, like they're able to fly the thing away, and they could get coordinates from that.
Yeah. Well, the film even sort of does that, doesn't it? Because like after a certain point, they get the coordinates from Dio.
Well, they get more information from Dio.
So more information from Dio,
yeah. But instead, they use Dio sort of like Dio's got trust issues, so they sort of background play that out. So he's like he wouldn't be willing to reveal information to begin with, but also he's a droid.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think you are spot on because it has actually, as I see in the comments there, Alan Sanborn said something. I actually had this exact thought. He's saying that it's a very Indiana Jones vibe.
Yes.
As I was falling asleep last night, because I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about Chewbacca dying with the two transports is like in Raiders of the Lost Ark with Marion, and it's like, oh, they must have switched trucks, and you think he's dead. And I was like, yeah, and obviously Raiders, you have they get the medallion. The medallion has to go to the room, and the light to tell you where the Ark is. I'm like, yeah, there's quite a lot.
Yeah,
actually, Poe and Zori is sort of like Marion and Indy. Like, I do wonder if that's sort of where they. If that's sort of cross-pollinated into their brains of like, oh well, that's the vibe we'll have, this like Indiana Jones thing, especially Raiders. But the thing with that is it's very Kasdan and Lucas and Spielberg obviously have such a good hold on how many MacGuffins you can have. Yes. And in this case, it is literally just the two. It's like, okay, we just need. And it's a straight line. It's not, you're not going back on yourself. You're not like, okay, we found Dio and then this and this. Oh, but now Dio comes back into it. Oh no, the dagger is in 3PO, but now 3PO, it's like, no, this is this. Done.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. I think why it feels like a lot is because you start with one, then you go to another just to come back to the first one. So you sort of go on this zigzagged kind of quest.
That's it.
But like if you took the blade away, and you just made it all about the Wayfinder. So, we've said they find Dio. Dio can be communicated with. BB-8 can actually plug into him, so they could have got the coordinates there. So either that, the ship could speak. Either of them could speak in Sith language as well. So you could still preserve the 3PO Kajimi storyline. But they don't actually
Rose be the one who does it, but they need Zori because she's got a Sith translator.
Yeah, or something. But and then thinking about it's like, okay, but then the blade goes with Chewie. Chewie, fake dies. But you don't actually need the blade to warrant them going back for Chewie because Chewie's Chewie. Like, there's nothing to do with the blade in their reasoning for going back to get him. It's because it's Chewie.
Yeah. Now, the only way the blade does play in. There's two ways. The first way is that's how, and this is clear in the novelization, which if you have not read the novelization, read it. It's fantastic. Someone actually mentions there about it's interesting that Lando stayed on Persona for so long. Jeffrey, actually, Junkyard Dog Jeffrey. That's all explained in the book, and it's fantastic. I will definitely talk about that later. That's how Kylo Ren knows to go to Death Star 2, because they analyze the blade.
Yeah.
But again,
yes,
they put a tracking device on Chewie. They did this, they did that, whatever. You can easily get around that. The second thing, obviously, is that's what killed Rey's parents.
Yeah.
So you have a little flashback, but
they're on a ship where the killing actually happened, and I mean, I guess you could still have Rey, Force intuit things from the ship. The dagger could exist, but it could just not be a special wayfinding dagger. It could just be on the ship.
She opens a room, goes in, touches the wall. Something terrible has happened in this room. They're in there. Ochi blasts them. Yeah,
something. Yeah, there's all sorts of things that you could do, and I guess that's just the thing that I couldn't find a really great reason not to simplify it in my mind.
With it being the final movie as well.
Yeah, but that's really it.
If this was the second movie, fill your boots.
Different story.
You've got them for days. Doesn't matter. Because someone, the third film will come in and sort that out. But with this, you've got to be always ending. Always one step towards the end, you assume. Okay, so there is a lot going on. And I think this is something that you either are going to love or you're going to hate in your stories. So with this, it sets up a very a complex spider web of moments and actions leading to a common reaction of that me and you both have, or we had in our first view anyway, that it's too overstuffed or it's too frantic. But as we said, that's really a gripe that fades away after your first watch, I think. And there's always something about like the first time you see a Star Wars, it's so hard to take in because you're so on your edge of your seat and just like absorbing every second of it that it's actually a little bit like sensory overload. And because Rise of Skywalker just keeps hitting you with information and places and names and things and people, it does get a little bit kind of, you know, ugh. But coursing through this Ben Swallow-sized body of a film, you will find a beating heart of Star Wars, and that is a hero's journey and a villain's redemption.
Rey's journey weaves in and out of the A-plot, as we mentioned earlier. And much like Luke in Return of the Jedi, Rey spends the bulk of the film following the same physical path as her friends, but spiritually and emotionally, her world is being kind of rocked in parallel to everyone else. Ultimately, the sequel trilogy is Rey's story, and it's a story about a young woman making her way in a world of myth and legend, who feels kind of undeserving of her power and greatness, but ultimately finds herself and her own path. Where Kylo Ren is on a very similar path, finding his place in that same world of myth and legend, but unlike Rey, he doesn't just think that he deserves it. He believes he's entitled to it. I guess the question is, what's going to happen between Rey and Kylo Ren? Is Rey actually a nobody? Will Ben Solo return to the light? These were all big questions, and we kind of expected them to be answered in The Rise of Skywalker. And you know what? I think it actually delivered answers to all of it.
So in terms of this story, in terms of Kylo Ren and Rey, or Ben Solo and Rey, what were you expecting from this film?
Look, I was a bit more into the whole Reylo vibe and where I thought that was going to go. I guess we talked about the Reylo scale a bit in other shows and whatnot. Like 0 is there is nothing. I guess 0 is the Colin Trevorrow version of it. Door is closed. That's it. Their relationship's done. There is no more story. 10 is they get married, they have babies, they live happily ever after. It's very
see all that.
And we see it. Yeah, the
movie is all that.
They bang on screen. That's the 10. And I think we kind of got the 7.
Yeah.
And to be frank, that's kind of what I was expecting. Well, like, what about you?
Oh no, definitely. I mean, I think the more I saw the expectations on Twitter, the more I saw people writing about how they'd show a clip of them fighting on the Death Star and be like, I think this is them training together. Come on.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And like people were expecting a 10. People, not everyone. I mean, I don't want to generalize here because I've never really had any problem with any Reylo people. They've always been very cool. But you were never going to get 10. I don't, especially with this film being so, as we talked about, like overstuffed, there wasn't space enough for that.
Yeah.
In the more I think about it, I think the only way you could have got kind of a close enough Reylo scale to that would have been the Dark Knight Rises ending.
Yep.
So you would have had them they kiss, Ben doesn't die, and then Exegol collapses, and everyone just sort of assumes they're dead.
Yep.
And then at the end, you have Tatooine, and you go, the Lars homestead, and she's outside, and he's inside, and you hear a baby crying, or something like that. And I think that
turned it into a cafe.
Well, they turned it into a very a swanky cafe. It's called the Blue Bantha Milk Co. Me and you are there. It's this is it. This is my fanfic. That's actually I'm pitching now. I'm taking over this stream for just talking fanfic. Now, I think that's it, and that's the closest you could get because you couldn't have her taking him back to the rebel base. There wasn't enough time. There wasn't enough time to take all that in.
Yeah, that's a long conversation.
It's a very long. You can't do it in a montage. It's a whole movie of that.
Yeah.
So I think that was the thing. I was happy with what we got, but like I say, I wasn't that invested in it. I was quite, when they had the big kiss at the end, I was like, oh, that's cool, that's sweet, and it's nice that the Reylos get something.
Yeah.
I was more annoyed at the end when she said Rey Skywalker, because I was like, I just feel like Rey Solo just makes more sense with what we've seen, but
we both. So I remember we both kind of went, what with that, and I think over time that has definitely grown on me. It's definitely grown on me. Like I didn't have that moment and be like, oh no. Like there's no videos of me screaming at a cinema screen. But I guess something that really, really sticks out to me is that, throughout the whole story, Rey has been searching for an identity of sorts. And, it's always been her mentors that have been telling her that she's enough. And those mentors have been Luke Luke kind of, I think, a little bit off screen and whatnot, and then a bit more in TROS. But Leia especially has, been, telling her that she is enough. The Force itself has always been telling her that she's been enough. Like, I think that's what the cave scene is. That is the Force telling her. It's like, yeah, cool, you've got parents and there's something there that you need to know about, but really it's about you. That's why it shows her back. Your reflection, you're your parent. You've done everything that you need.
You raised yourself,
Yeah. I think it's kind of a fitting tribute, I guess, in that sense, because the Skywalkers are born of the Force. That she takes that Skywalker name, and that's kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah, it has definitely grown on me. I think I had that weird thing though because I sort of at first was like, I don't understand why this film is called this. And then when I went online to kind of like see if I could get someone to help me, and people were coming back to me saying like, oh, well, what it means is like Skywalker is a new name for the Jedi. And I was like, no, that's what we speculated it was going to mean.
Yeah.
Before the film came out. I don't think the film actually gives you that. I think it's like you say there, she sort of found her place and she's continuing a legacy. And Jeffrey, our admin here, is actually saying that knowing that Rey inherited the Skywalker lightsaber, it makes sense. And I'm into that. I mean, I think she inherited the mantle and the whole thing, and she's going to carry it on. And the Skywalker Saga has ended, but there's more. Well, we'll come to that later, but there's more to be said. Yeah, I'm into it. It took a while for me to get into it. I think like Rise of Skywalker, me and you both had different things in terms of how long it took us to, well, it took me a really long time actually to sort of change my opinion of it. And I did find actually that I will thank ForceFest actually, because coming up with the idea for this was sort of part of my therapy to sort of see if I could get over some of my...
It's a bit of a kick in the bum for you. Yeah.
It has. And so I did this and I read the book. The book's fantastic. And that's definitely helped me. And the more I read about it, the more homework I do, and more like, this film, no, you know what? I dig it. I dig it a lot more than I think I dig it. And I think the things that I had problems with, going back to what we were saying before, were weight of expectations. I went in wanting something, and then when they didn't give me that, I sort of, I think, took offense and was just like, but I've made 20 YouTube videos saying what I want. Like, why isn't JJ watching them? What is this? What is this disrespect? So I mean, I'm even like sort of with the Rey Palpatine. I was a big fan, as you were, Rey Nobody. But then Rey Palpatine, the more I sort of thought about it, I found myself in this idea of like, well, what if it kind of is the Jedi trials?
Yes.
In Last Jedi, she is presented with her like worst fear, which is that she's nobody, that she has no place in the story, that she's nothing. And she still becomes a hero. She still shows up at Crate to help. She still does the right thing. And then now she's shown the complete opposite of that. It's like, oh no, your worst fear was that you were nobody, but no, that this is better. You've got a family. Oh, but it's the devil. And she still does the right thing. And it's like, these are like the kind of Jedi trials of okay, yeah, you could be tempted to the dark side this way, but you could be tempted this way, or you have to prove that you are who you are. And I dig that. I dig that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I dig it a lot too. I guess, like the concept of chosen or found family, it runs through Star Wars quite strongly. And I guess I think after the dust has settled, I'm deeply into it. Like I agree with the idea of continuing some sort of conflict for the character. Like I would have been a little bit bored if it was just like, yep, cool. Well, that's it. She's Rey Nobody, and now she's gone into TROS, and she's just the hero.
yes.
And I guess what I would have feared in that moment would be that they almost go to Return of the Jedi with it. And just be like, okay, well, Rey's the hero, that's decided, and now her mission is to bring Ben Solo back. And I that would have... I've seen it. Well, that's it. I have absolutely seen it. So I don't think I necessarily wanted to see that again, even though I think at some point going into it, I kind of did. Yeah, you know what I mean?
No,
like,
I do. Yeah, I think. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think there was that sort of thing in the build up in terms of like speculation, expectation of being like, well, this is her mission now. She has to bring Ben back. But yeah, it's good that they actually gave you a bit of a curveball on that. As the story progresses, Rey and Kylo's Force bond from The Last Jedi continues to bring the two together. But unlike its occasional awkward shirtless timing in the previous film, this time it's like the Force is hurtling them towards each other in a convergence, whether they like it or not. And as we talked about before, like in the original screenplay for Episode 9, Colin Trevorrow saw Rey closing the door as a literal like end to the relationship, which is interesting, I think, because like JJ obviously didn't see that. He took it the other way.
On the other side of this, you've got Kylo Ren, who's being manipulated by Palpatine, and he literally pushes Rey to breaking point. Rey at this point is suffering from a very long-standing insecurity and fear, and she absolutely, just like in The Last Jedi, she takes the bait. She's poked and she's prodded into believing that she is poisonous, until finally at the Death Star wreckage, they meet one last time as enemies. And it's here that Rey's story breaks away from the A-plot. And as the waves come crashing down around them, what I loved about it is that it's Leia that teaches her student and her son one final lesson.
Episode 9, obviously, was always going to be Leia's film. So, one of the earliest revealed kind of sequel trilogy plans was the idea of them being like handovers, like passing the baton. So you had obviously Han in Force Awakens and Luke in Last Jedi, but Carrie Fisher passing away in 2016, I believe. You know, how were they going to make this work in Episode 9? That was sort of a big question after the sort of after the dust had settled. And basically, could other legacy characters come in and carry that burden? And also, another speculation was like, how could Episode 9 give us a satisfying conclusion without using Leia? Speculation, expectations ran wild. You know, would Force Ghost Anakin return to be kind of the Skywalker to help her? What about Darth Jar Jar? Would the task of bringing Ben Solo back to light fall on Luke? Would Darth Jar Jar make an appearance? And who else could fill Leia's shoes? Would it be Darth Jar Jar? The answer for JJ and Lucasfilm was nobody. Nobody could fill those shoes.
And I think I think that is a statement that rings really true for me. I don't think anyone could have filled her shoes. But I guess, what were you expecting that they were going to do? Because they just said that, you know, like before they told everyone that they've got found footage and all that sort of stuff, they said they weren't going to replace her. So what were you expecting?
I was sort of either the opening crawl was going to be, you know, Leia's dead. Well, the movie was going to start with Leia's funeral, and we're going to have to just like, and it was going to be Force Ghost Luke. You know, Mark Hamill was going to have to carry the burden. Or, I mean, I know they did say they weren't going to do this, but I was sort of like, maybe they should recast. And I know I kind of I've said this a few times, but I was like, maybe maybe recasting would be the way forward, because even if it was Force Ghost Luke, or even Force Ghost Anakin, I think would have been too weird a choice. But
so I was big on the Anakin train. I was certain that it was going to be Force Ghost Anakin.
Actually, no. Well, I think I was sort of expecting from Last Jedi, Force Ghost Luke would be kind of like harassing Kylo, like see around kid, you know. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think Anakin would have been a good stopgap, but I think it just had to be Leia. It was Leia's movie. It was like, but it's a tough one because obviously who knows what you kind of think, okay, what would this movie have been like if Carrie Fisher had been alive? And the closest you do get to that is because there's more dialogue and there's more stuff like that, and it is very good. But it's you couldn't the problem is by this point you can't bring Lando in to be the Leia character, and most of every Jedi
not the right fit for it anyway.
No, that's it. He's very much he works very well as like Poe's Leia, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
that works really well. I think he's great in that role as like the elder statesman who just sort of knows how to build a rebellion line. But yeah, no, it's a tough one because at that point, I don't know. It's a tough one. I was sort of so confused about what they were going to do and how it was going to work and whether it was going to work. And I'm still a little bit, I think when it works, and I think there's only one scene that doesn't work of Leia, and it's that weird scene with Snap where they have that weird back and forth. You could just cut both ends of that and just take it out. It doesn't move any plot line any forward. But everything else, joke? it doesn't do anything. But I think a lot of the when I was watching it this week and I sort of again just took a step back and was like, no, just watch it. Don't try and break it apart. Don't try and it works really well. I mean, the special effects obviously disgracefully good. It's crazy how much she's there. But I think they managed to there's some emotional beats that are incredible that they managed to get from old footage and stuff. And I think Daisy Ridley does very well to carry a lot of the kind of emotional load of the part. And I think they do very well with it.
Yeah. I think for the most part, I was surprised when I heard that what they were doing and whatnot. Then getting into the cinema, kind of, I was ready for it in a sense. But that's probably to my detriment a bit because I was waiting for it, like actively waiting for it. It's like, all right, when's Leia going to turn up? What are they going to do with Leia? And then the second she popped up, I'm just like, examining the screen, I'm examining the tracing, I'm looking at everything, and that kind of pulled me out a little bit. So it's taken a few watches to sort of just forget about all of that stuff. The joke scene between her and Snap is, I'm not really a big fan of it. I think the dialogue in it works kind of the best because obviously it was a setup joke from previous filming. But yeah, like you said, I'm just like, no, okay. So you found this, and you're just sort of throwing it in there, and
because it doesn't add anything. Like that's the thing.
No.
Basically, he says, "Oh, we don't."
Only a little bit of levity.
Yeah, a little bit of levity, and that's it. And you could lose that scene, and there's a few lines of dialogue that are cut. Like I guess in this from the book that help other characters. And you're like, find the time to do that rather than
something that kind of really grabbed me or stood out, I should say, is it becomes the role of the surrounding characters to provide exposition for what Leia is doing and saying, especially in the lead up to her communicating with Ben. I found Maz. I found her role probably the most clunky, actually more clunky than Leia, because it's just she constantly has to explain what Leia is doing. So I feel like they were they shackled themselves in some respects. And while it is a really it's a beautiful tribute to try and keep her in the film, it's definitely putting cuffs on the production. And so it's definitely, there's a balancing act that has to be done there. And in some parts, I think they nail it. And in other parts, I didn't quite think that they did.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. I think that scene, especially with Mars, is if you just took it out, I think we could have worked out what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely spoon feeds you just in case, and I wonder how much of an active choice that is, because one of the actually, I'm not going to even say one of the criticisms. Many criticisms of The Last Jedi that you can find on the internet tend to be things that are answered in the film. You know, you just watch the film and there it is. And so I do wonder sometimes if it's just a very different storytelling approach, saying, okay, well, and I don't think it's a conscious one saying, well, people didn't get it here, so we better spoon feed them here. I think it's just different styles of writing where they just give you everything and you don't have to think too much. And I don't need it necessarily. I was like, I could have figured that out.
Yeah. I mean, we actually see that again with Hux and Chewie, when it's like there was a second, like Hux says there's a second transport. And then later on, when Rey realizes Chewie's alive, she says, there must have been another transport.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
we saw two.
We saw two. I mean, when I first watched the movie, I clocked that there was two.
Yeah.
Just watching it. And I was like, oh. And I was waiting for the second one to appear. And I was like, oh, it's a bait and switch, I see. But then it goes, Chewie's dead, scene, Chewie's revealed to be alive. And again, that scene could just be cut. But again, it's a little bit spoon-feedy. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah. Oh, no. The one thing I will say, and there's a little bit of pro con about all this stuff, but the reveal of Leia's Jedi training, of two moments in the film that brought me actively to tears, that's one of them. You know, and even though, like, you know, you could say, like, yeah, some of the VFX works maybe a little bit shaky on it. It's like, I don't care. That scene was such a payoff. How did you feel about that?
Oh, I think that's great. I think that's really cool, and I think that's something that, like, it's a big fan, like, not, it's sort of fan service that works, if you know what I mean. It's like fan service in the sense of, like, oh, here's these young characters, you know, here's Leia and Luke fighting with lightsabers. How cool is that? But also very much pushes the plot forward.
Yes.
And gives you something. It's actually, again, I got a couple more novelization things. It's actually, that's revealed on like page 6 of the thing. They talk about Luke and Leia training, but Leia just doesn't say why she stopped. You know, you don't find that out till later. But I thought, like, I don't know, it's cool because you don't get flashbacks in Star Wars. You know, it's you know, that's like a new thing. So to have that and go back and see kind of like babyface Luke and babyface Leia, it's like, that's cool. I like it. And also as well, it's got big emotional heft and pushes the plot forward and gives you that extra blue lightsaber and gives you some more Ben Solo and stuff like that. So I think it's great.
Yeah. Quick interjection. Alan saying that you've been frozen. Sean, can everyone hear Sean even if his video is frozen or has been frozen? No, he's normal. Okay. So it's just Jeffrey.
No, just...
Oh, sorry, not Jeffrey. It's just Alan. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah, we'll jump back into it.
Am I frozen in like a handsome stance, or like?
I don't know. Maybe just let it go.
I can't.
The last thing I think I'll say about the Jedi training, it's that payoff of what Yoda says. You know, there is another.
There's another. Yeah.
There is another, and you know, obviously that has been given further weight over the years with other stories and all that sort of stuff. But seeing it on screen like that was something, truly, truly special.
Yeah, it's not something you expect, which is cool.
One last thing I will say about Leia, what I did love, even though the delivery of it leading into it was maybe a little bit clunky with Maz, I really, really love that it is Leia and Han that are the ones to bring Ben back to the light, and it's not Rey.
That is cool.
The way that the film uses kind of legacy characters, it brings emotional weight and it brings context to all of the conflict that you're seeing on screen. And, you know, The Rise of Skywalker does definitely lean a little heavier on the original trilogy's legacy than, say, like The Last Jedi did. Lando's back, and 3PO has a bigger part, and little R2 is still somewhat in the background. The expected Luke is back as well. and as a Force ghost. Everyone's going, oh, Luke's dead. No one just dies. And of course, Palpatine's back, but apparently he'd been back all along. Yeah. But yeah, Leia and Han delivering that final hammer blow in the nail of the nailing the coffin shut on Kylo Ren was just, I think, an amazing choice. But on the other side, some areas like 3PO and Chewie's deaths, TROS is a little bit non-committal, and it does play it safe. But it does deliver some of the most fulfilling Star Wars moments in, I think, the entire saga. The final confrontation between Rey and Kylo Ren, and then following that up with Han and Ben in this scene. Yeah, it was just incredibly moving.
Oh, that's my favorite scene in the whole
absolutely.
film. Watching now. Yeah.
And yeah, Leia and Han and Luke and Chewie and 3PO all play a very crucial role in giving Rey the final push that she needs, so that she can confront Palpatine. And it's from there that the film's final confrontation begins. And we're not going to talk about it. Sorry. Yeah, so we're up to the ending, and we're not really going to talk about what happens in the final act. Instead, we're just going to talk about where the ending leaves us. So I guess the galaxy's united, the Emperor has finally been defeated, and for all of the complexity and the bloat, I guess that we've discussed in the story earlier, the post Rise of Skywalker landscape is, I think, arguably a lot richer than what we got at the end of the prequel trilogy or at the end of the original trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, Sith Wayfinders are cool, and they're now a thing.
Yeah, and the Force can bring people back to life, and we've actually seen it now.
Yeah. Finn was an anomaly. There are still there are First Order stormtroopers that rebel and have their own stories.
And Sith acolytes, they're alive, or they've been alive for this time, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Imperial technology that's been hanging out in the unknown regions for years, still there.
And the Skywalker legacy, is born of the Force, like I mentioned earlier, has now been returned to the Force, and the name has been given a new life that can go off in its own direction and kind of a new meaning.
And there are some people, I guess, who probably didn't want to see Ben Solo, but he's become like the new Anakin, so he's a new character who we can pour ourselves into and say, okay, there is a chance to be a better person. You can come back from these dark things. But in terms of endings, obviously letting go is always painful. And regardless of your final take, realistically, hand on heart, was there any version of episode 9 that was going to please absolutely everyone? I mean, you only have to look at the finales of The Sopranos or Lost or Seinfeld or the Battlestar Galactica reboot. All of them are topics of constant, they should have done this or they ruined everything on YouTube. Even Breaking Bad, which has a nigh perfect ending, is criticized for wrapping up things too well. Expectations are inevitable. And if you've met a Star Wars fan before, you'll probably accept that Rise of Skywalker was always destined to be the chapter that we're going to argue about until the end of time.
I think that's because the lens that we use when we're watching finales to stories that we've grown up with are usually going to produce a much harsher judgment. There's a sense of grief that can manifest as anger and sadness for a journey coming to its end. And these are shows that we binge watched in a weekend. And I think that really rings true for a lot of us. For many of us, Star Wars has been a lifelong adventure. But something we've got to remember is that this is Star Wars. And the Rise of Skywalker doesn't mean that anything is ending. This is a sunrise. It's not a sunset. And no one is ever really gone. That is us. That's what we wanted to talk about.
Yes.
So we've got a few minutes left for a bit of Q&A. So yeah, Alan, love that both Sith and Rise end with the Tatooine sunset nod to the original. Yeah.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Eli, love your channel and love your thoughts on TROS. Thank you. Really appreciate it. What have we got here? I'm scrolling back through the chats. One thing I should remind everyone of as well, ForceFest has been brought to you by a lot of people working very hard for nothing. No money or gain out of it. We all are raising funds for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which I think is going to be for the greater Los Angeles area. So Jeffrey, our amazing admin, has just posted a link there you can go to that bit.ly link and you can make a donation if you would like to. The other side is, if you've bought Vcoin on Vocal, if you dump some Vcoin into this chat room, that all goes to Make-A-Wish, and Get Vocal, the platform that we're hosting this on, will give a 33% boost to any donations you make here. So that's pretty damn cool of them. I think it's a really good opportunity to get some extra money raised for a really good cause. But Sean, how do you think we went?
Yeah, good. I've got a question here. What are your thoughts about John Williams' music in TROS? I thought it was. I'm not good with music. Like I find it quite hard to kind of be quite distinct and quite clever with it. But I did notice that there's a scene where I think it's Rey, and I think when she realizes Ben Solo's come back, and it plays the Kylo Ren theme, but in a major key, I think. Yeah, it's great. It's just like, and that was it. I'm not good at that usually, and I just kind of went, "Oh, that's the tune," but it's played in a different thing. Yeah. As you can see, I'm an expert. But I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That's. I like a bit of. I like that. It's kind of like, it's almost subliminal. Yeah, absolutely. It's I think doing the channel, doing the YouTube channel has really kind of given me a little bit of a kick in the bum to learn a bit more of this stuff. Because I'm like you, someone used to say to me, like, major key, minor key, and I just be like, big and small. I don't know. But learning about things like leitmotifs and stuff like that over the years has become really kind of crucial in understanding and appreciating the score. And I thought the TROS score was, for the most part, it's a big collection of leitmotifs. So character themes and element themes and all these things that you recognize. So it's just like the greatest hits coming at you. But the new stuff when it comes up is bloody cool, like really cool. It is quite incredible that John Williams has just been doing this forever, and in his cameo, there's a thing, isn't there, where something ridiculous, there's in his cameo, in his little bar, JJ put a little item that represents all of his that was amazing, or something mad, but it's incredible that kind of he comes back into Star Wars and does the Rey theme and the Kylo Ren theme and the Resistance theme, and they're all instantly iconic. Whenever I hear that Rey theme, I'm just like, what a perfect piece of music. It's so perfect. And then also the Kylo Ren theme is such a ominous, almost Imperial March good. Just so good. One thing, so Alia Morgaine, Alia Morgaine said, in the Gungan celebration, it's actually the Emperor's theme. Bit of fun fact here, I only learned that at Celebration last year. I was sitting next to Jess from the Star Wars Refuge, and I was looking really confused. Penny dropped for her that I had no idea what they were going to say. And then when they revealed it, she's just looking at me, just staring at me like that. And I was just like, what? And I didn't know how that information just passed by me. And that changes everything. Everything I feel about that movie. But hey, 1 minute left. So I think we probably better wrap things up. Okay, so I will just leave this by saying, read the novelization. It's really good for heightening Lando's character. Very good for that. Make-A-Wish, great. When my baby niece had cancer, she got better. Make-A-Wish gave her a camper trailer, and they're camping in it right now. So, it's good. Really cool. And I've just thrown a link to our channel if you enjoyed what we did and you'd like to go and check us out. It's in the chat, but also on screen here. So head over to youtube.com/C/Blue Bantha Milk Co. No spaces, all one word, and you will find us. So thank you, and thanks to everyone for coming along, and thanks to everyone at ForceFest for putting this thing together. It's really amazing of you to have done that just for the love of it. Yes. May Force with you, Wakanda forever, and thank you very much. Wakanda forever.